accidente, etc.
Thrill me.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks podcast. I'm your host, Tim, and today I'm joined by Zach, host of Death Curse Club. How's it going, man?
Not bad, my friend. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Stoked to have you on the show, and I'm stoked that the day that this episode drops will be the day that Tidewater Horror Convention kicks off, so we'll be hanging out there all weekend for sure. So,
Heck yeah, man. I'm excited about this. It's my first time getting to go to the con and I get to participate in it. So it's going to be a fun time.
hell yeah. No, I'm stoked for sure and stuff. And I'll be out there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think you'll just be out there, what, Saturday, Sunday? So
Yeah, Saturday and Sunday. Friday, I have a previously scheduled event with the kiddo.
hell yeah. No, I don't blame you
Yeah.
at all for sure. The kids, my co-host won't be out there Saturday because of the same thing. He's got soccer, so.
Oh yeah, but funny enough, I have soccer Saturday, but luckily enough, it's way early.
Yeah,
So
hell yeah. And then of course, to kick things off, like I mentioned, you're the host of Death Curse Club. Do you want to let the people know that don't know, what it is and where they can find it?
Yeah, man. We're on YouTube. We also have podcast apps. We do a Death Curse Club Live, which is basically, all the news, reviews, and stuff that we do will usually be on that live show. And then we've just recently started doing a reaction to horror movies because my wife, Brooke, has very little history with horror, but every time I take her to a movie, she's freaking out. Like we saw The Conjuring last rites. She's freaking out like nobody's business. And I'm like, reaction videos are kind of the thing. So right now on our YouTube, that's kind of our big hits. And we're about to start the Nightmare on Elm Street series with her because I came to the realization, as much as I talk Freddy, as much as I love him, she has not seen near one of them outside of Freddy vs. Jason.
Holy crap, not even the original?
Not even the original. And like, she's not here, so this is fine. Like, she has no idea Johnny Depp's in that movie, and she's going to freak out when she sees him.
Holy shit, that's awesome. That's that's just like right now we just watched that documentary last night, Unknown Caller. That's like famous, I don't know if you saw about that, but it's about a girl getting cyberbullied and stuff like that on Netflix.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, we watched it as well.
Right now with the internet, I couldn't even go, like, that thing was out a week and I already knew who the cyberbully was because of the internet. And I was like, so I didn't get to watch it and have like the twist happen for me. So it was still like crazy to watch, but it was one of those things that it was like, it would have been so much cooler. So it's so cool that she's gone like this long without knowing that Johnny Depp's in it. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, she's going to go for a whirlwind with that series. I feel we got done with the Terrifier series, which both of us had never seen. Yeah. It's going to be it is a house currently at Halloween Horror Nights. So we do this thing on the channel of like, oh, we do our homework for Patreon. And I was like, this is the time. And boy, oh boy, did not realize how much I love that franchise now.
Hell yeah. No, I watched those videos. Those were some of my favorites. Those were hilarious for sure. I was surprised that you guys hadn't watched them yet just because, they were so big and because you do the show, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
Hell yeah. My wife's the same way too, though. Like she doesn't watch horror and stuff at all. So she would probably react like she refuses to watch Terrifiers. I feel you on that. Taking a minute to watch it because especially like, if it's a little bit harsher stuff like that, I can see putting it off and watching the more friendly stuff so the wife can watch it too. And
Right. Kid friendly. We need kid friendly.
Yeah, kid friendly too. Yeah. Oh no, I was watching the Dead Meat Horror Awards on accident this year with my son, and they just straight start showing scenes from Terrifier 3, and I'm like, no, you're usually blurring it out. Like, what are you doing? And I was like,
what are you doing?
Like, I made it this long without him seeing that, and I was like, damn it.
Right. Well, that's why I kind of like my kid loves Michael Myers, and it's nice that like for the majority, besides making him turn his eyes, he's watched the original Halloween because there's really no blood. Yeah. And so he has like 2 Michael Myers masks. And yesterday in the like in our front yard, he's like, hey, I'm going to go scare people now. And just goes out there and wait for people go on their walks. And he's just putting on his Michael Myers mask. So we're really training him out here.
Right. I know my kid's seen Jeepers Creepers already, but I was like, it didn't phase him. I was like, dude, if I saw Jeepers Creepers at your age, I would have been like in my mom's, like, I would have been back in the womb. I would have been like, I'm
right. It's a different world now. The way that the evolution of horror from when well, I'm an 80s kid. So like Friday the 13th Part 2 was the very first thing that I saw
Yeah.
and like scared the bejesus out of me. And then seeing how tame that is compared to what we have now, and it doesn't phase them sometimes.
Yeah. And that's actually a perfect segue into my first question, which is, what was your start with horror and how did it grow as you became an adult? I know you said that Friday 13th, you said part two was the first one you
Yeah,
saw?
part two. Part two.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Yeah, so my start with it would be that I was at a babysitter's house and teenage kids running around. So it was the first one I saw, and I'm far too young to watch this. I only remember one scene, and it's Baghead Jason running after the lady. God, I can't even remember her name. Annie, maybe. I
I
don't
think
know.
so. I remember like
Uh
key characters, but there's
yeah, 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 yeah.
so many characters. Yeah.
But specifically burned in my mind is him running. I was like, he's running. But that freaked me out. But then horror for me started about 93 when my mom took me to Blockbuster and they were selling VHSs, and Halloween was for sale there, very cheap. And I was like, Mom, is this a good movie? And she was like, scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. And I'm like, this is the one I want to watch. And I specifically went to my grandma's house because she was going out, and I just put it in there and was entranced. And I was like, oh my God, I am scared, petrified of this boogeyman, and I need more. And to come to find out, there were sequels, but wildly enough, and I don't know how many people feel this way with the Halloween series, but definitely with the Friday the 13th. I didn't see Friday the 13th in order. I didn't see Halloween in order. So I think like I watched Halloween, Halloween 4 and 5, then I got the C2, then I got to Curse of Michael Myers. Then I got to find out about the season of the witch that didn't have anything to do with Michael Myers, which as a kid, a fan of the franchise, yeah, it irked me that it wasn't a Mike movie. But then the love of Tom Atkins and growing and getting it that way was really, really nice to go with. But
Yeah.
yeah, slasher genre was what I was sticking to. And like in the 90s, that's pretty much what we were banging on is like, Scream, Leprechaun, Candyman, Hellraiser. So those were my starts for horror.
Hell yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. That's one of those things with all those like with slashers, it's a little easier to get into as you watch them because they're like they're funner and like they're scary when you're
Mhm.
young, but as you like once you get used to like one or two of them and like once you see where the scares are, it's easy to rewatch those. You know what I mean? Because the scares
Oh
aren't
yeah.
like who's in my closet type shit. So, uh,
Right.
but no, but I had the same experience, because it's kind of like, we grew up in a time when, we had to go to Blockbuster or, catch something on AMC Fear Fest or, Sci-Fi Channel
Hmm.
or, so we couldn't like necessarily just sit and say, I'm gonna watch one, two, three, four. So I had the same
Right.
experience where I saw like Halloween 1. I think I saw Halloween 2 actually first, and then I saw Halloween 1 randomly in the back of a Big Lots because my stepdad
Oh
was
wow.
he was an assistant man. Well, no, he was the actual store manager, and so like I was just there one night while he was working in the back
Mhm.
room, and in the break room they had a TV with a VCR, and one of the employees brought it, and I was like just sitting there watching. Like I watched like 75% of it, and I was like I gotta watch the rest of this, but uh, the
Yeah.
which I think it was edited for TV. Like that's why they let me watch it because they had ripped it themselves. They didn't have like the actual, like it was one of those like recorded off the TV.
Record off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had so many movies done that way back in the day.
No, same. But that was one of the things that was so interesting about those. Like same with Friday the 13th. I definitely saw those out of whack. Like the first one I saw was maybe Jason X or Takes Manhattan, so
Yeah, no, USA Up All Night, and they would always do on the USA the Friday the 13th marathons
yeah.
back in the early 90s. So it was part 7 was my very first one, then part 8. So those two have a special spot in my heart, even though me and 8 can get into fights now. But I still love 7.
Hell yeah. No, no. Freddy was one of the weird ones. That was one of the only ones that, so it makes sense that your wife hasn't seen a lot of them because that's one that even growing up, I only saw like the first one.
Mhm.
like on TV and on VH, and then like I saw maybe like one of the sequels like a couple of the sequels, but it was because I actually rented them.
Right.
I don't remember catching any of those on TV, so it makes sense that it
Yeah.
was like harder to catch and stuff. But what about, would you say any of those became your favorite horror film of all time? And of course, feel free to
Oh.
shout out a few favorites, not just, hell yeah, Halloween.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a Halloween simp. Michael Myers is my favorite all-time slasher. I can see good in any of those movies, even like Curse of Michael Myers. That's actually the first one I saw in theater. My mom took me and a group of my friends to go see it. She bought the tickets at Greenbrier Mall in Chesapeake and sat in the back row for the first 20 minutes and dipped. But Michael Myers is my end all be all, which I would say is my top slasher. Spooky ghost movie, I would say Poltergeist or even The Conjuring are really neck and neck of supernatural movies that I get behind. And like ever since 2000, about 14, I feel like we've had a different kind of horror renaissance of, actually filmmaking and trying to make spooky atmosphere and stuff. So I will give a shout out to It Follows.
Hell yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
as soon as you said 2014, I was like, yeah, It Follows is what really, like Hereditary is probably my favorite of
Mm,
like the newer stuff personally,
yeah.
but It Follows
Yeah.
is definitely up there, and it's the one I credit as well for like kicking it off. Really, it was like that one, and then The Witch came like close behind that, and then yeah, and then
Yeah.
no, it's awesome to see the horror renaissance running because, and then we also got stuff that's paying homage to, like, we got the more like, you know. What people call elevated horror. I hate the term, but it's like it's one of those things. It's like I don't like the term, but when you can't find anything else to use, it's easy to use. So, uh,
Right.
but we also got the like really fun and just like goofy like idea stuff. Like more for the masses with like Malignant, but you also got the stuff that like Joe Bagos is doing with like Jimmy and Stiggs and
Hmm.
VFW and. So you got stuff that's more like akin to like what Peter Jackson was doing back in the day, and that like splatter flick stuff. But then you also got
Yeah.
people paying, homage to more like Rosemary's Baby and The Changeling and stuff like that. So that's my problem. I don't have a problem with the word elevated horror. I just don't like when people act like it's a new thing. I feel like it's been around since like Psycho, you could say is elevated, or
Hmm.
I feel like it's just something that, is a little bit more to it than just like blood and guts, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I actually just did a mini rant on my last episode about the word elevated horror, just
yeah.
because it's acting like it's better than horror in
Yeah.
some cases. It's like, no, it's actually just horror. And like you said, like Psycho and things of these are very smart, well done, written movies. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a great written movie. And then
Yeah.
there's just a bunch of cases that can be said. It's just for some reason the 80s, 90s, 70s, like only people want to focus on slasher. And it's like, there's a little bit more than just that.
Yeah. No, and even like you said, like Nightmare on Elm Street and like some of the other slashers, like are really smart, like Black Christmas, even before that, that has a lot of
Mhm.
stuff that like it takes like a lot of stuff about woman empowerment, like you have a lot of stuff with her like saying she's getting an abortion, no matter what, and standing up for
Mm-hmm.
herself, and then all the stuff that the other girls are going through, and no, it's just no, I agree 100%. But it's one of those things I want to find a better word for it. I guess that's just a smart horror, you know what I mean? But
Right,
yeah,
right.
I know what you mean. It's one of the things that's the reason the word sucks is because it was born out of people trying to make a word for horror because they don't like horror. But
Right. It's
yeah,
pretentiousness,
yeah.
basically.
No, but speaking of those, you mentioned It Follows. Do you have any other like recent horror films that you've enjoyed? And they don't have to be like super recent, like this year. They could be in the past like five
Right.
years or so.
Right. No, Hereditary is a good one. Midsummer really
Hmm.
did mess with me. Talk to Me is really good. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I know that, honest to God, like, uh, it's now, I guess we could call it a franchise. The Smile franchise rocks my world like
Oh yeah,
nobody's business. And I wish it was getting a lot more love than it has gotten. I do think there is love for the franchise out there, but Smile has rocked me. And then up until recently, Together. Together was a fun theater experience.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Together. That was one that I saw Together and Weapons like a week apart, and everybody was in love with
Ooh.
Weapons, and I really liked Weapons. But I would probably say that I liked Together a little bit more. Like I probably just had more fun watching it, you know what I mean, and would watch it again before I'd watch Weapons again, type thing.
100%. That's it. You just did my entire review because I saw Weapons just fairly recently after all everybody hyped it up. And I was like, yeah, it's a good movie. I think the people freaking out about it is because it's structured in chapters in an interesting way. But if this movie was straightforward, I don't think it would have the love that is deemed on it. But I did enjoy.
Yeah. Now I think it really hinges on how much you like the like without spoiling it for people that haven't seen it, like the
Mhm.
climax of the film, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
same thing with like Hereditary or even a Barbarian, like how much you like the way the film like starts to turn in the end is
Right.
which of course Barbarian turns a lot sooner, but like I've heard a lot of
Mhm.
people that like hate Hereditary and it's just because that they just didn't like the fact that it was supernatural in the end. They wanted it to be, somebody that, Annie was crazy or something. And I'm like, just because you wanted a certain ending doesn't make it a bad ending or whatever. But and I feel like that's the same thing with
Yeah.
weapons when people and the same thing with long legs. Like when that became supernatural in the end, some people
Mm-hmm.
were like, "Oh, I don't like that," and I definitely understand not like not liking it. But and that's the same thing with like weapons. I could see where people like that's why it's a little polarizing. Some people
Hmm.
love what happens in the end, and they're like, "Oh man, this blew me away." Plus, like you said, the storytelling's a little unique. Same thing with like Strange Darling. Like that was one that blew a lot of people away last year, and it was strictly just because of the like way it was like told and everything like that. It was a good movie too. Like don't get me wrong, I really like Strange Darling, but it was the same thing. It was like a lot of people's favorite of the year, and it was probably like I think I had it in at like 9 of the year or something like that, 9 or 10.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I think for me, funny enough, the movies like Hereditary and even Weapons, the supernatural stuff is the reason why I actually push it higher on my list through whenever, whatever year for Hereditary, which was probably what, 17, 18,
Yeah,
19.
I think I always think it's 18 and it's 17, but
Yeah. But I think for me that helps it because it's like, yeah, we need an answer for all this crazy stuff that's going on because once you ground it, it's kind of for me, it's harder to believe. Like, why
yeah.
did this happen? Why are you doing this? Like, I'm here for the Dark Knight of stuff. I'm not here for the Batman where anybody can be a villain, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No, that's exactly what like when we reviewed weapons, it's kind of what we said about it too, is me and Steven, my co-host, is the fact that there's certain things in the film that like people are like, "Oh, this is a plot hole," and I'm like, "Well, because of the way that it like the film ends and like, what you find
Mhm.
out, trying to be as vague as possible, but
Yeah.
just because it's still so fresh and everything, but because you find out like what you find out, it makes sense. Like you can almost explain away any plot hole by being like, well, this character made it happen or whatever. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
no, I agree 100%. It's harder to live in, and believe in. Like same thing with long legs. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things
Yeah.
that, uh, like when they tell you the ending, it's kind of hard to be like, well, how come they didn't find, her mom's fingerprints all in all the houses and stuff like that? If, because they said at the beginning of the film that they scanned for because I love long legs. I'll be honest. It was like, that was probably
Yeah.
like number 5 for me of the year. And,
Yeah.
uh, but one of the biggest plot holes was at the beginning is, they mentioned that they scrubbed the houses and there's not a single random fingerprint other than the
Hmm.
family's. But then at the end of the film, they show you that her mom was going in and delivering these dolls. And I'm like,
Hmm.
she was leaving, she was supposed to be collecting the dolls, and so that way they weren't still around or whatever. Uh,
Right.
but like, how would she have gone in and out without leaving any kind of DNA and stuff like that? But now, but once you find out that there's like Satan involved with it, and stuff like that, you can
There's magic.
yeah, you could just easily go with that and be like, oh, well, he just protected any of that, from happening. So, no, I
Yep.
100% agree. That's definitely the easier way to go, especially with horror. You know what I mean? When you want to do stuff that's just off the wall and crazy, it's hard to bring it
Yeah.
back to reality in the end and make people buy it. So
Right. 100%. That's why, like, another shout out to a franchise that I love that I did not watch in order. Once again, the Evil Dead franchise.
yeah,
Like, that movie's batch crazy.
yeah.
And I love every variation that we've gotten.
Yeah, no, same. I didn't even see that just because I grew up like scared of horror movies until I was like 13,
Mhm.
14. And then by the time
Mhm.
I was watching them, it was like early 2000s. So it was one of those things where I was watching what was new and what people were showing me. So I didn't even see Evil Dead till I was like in my 20s. And I saw
Right.
that. I
Wow.
like saw 2013 was the first one I ever saw in theaters, and it like blew me
Mm,
away. So, but then I
wow.
went back and watched all the originals and stuff, and now I'm like a big fan and stuff. I've been watching them
Sick.
for like a decade now, uh, but at the back half of the show, and of course, feel free if you think of any more favorites, classic or recent that you want to shout out, just in the midst of the few hypothetical questions and the wrap-up question I have for you. But in
Mhm,
the back half of the show, I like to ask like two hypothetical questions. And the first one is, you do a show as well, and you like to interview people from time to time.
mhm,
If you could have
mhm,
anybody, and we'll go live, that way it makes it a little bit more narrowed down. But if there's
mhm.
anybody out there in the horror world at all that you could interview, who would it be?
I mean, it's a fascinating question because the the people that you want to interview, especially, for me, it's the writers, the directors, because they're the ones who've come up with this, the brainchilds and stuff. But when you see someone who's just absolutely just done talking about it,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, but if we can play the scenario as like they're willing, they're not going to be any kind of trouble. John Carpenter's a huge one. Jamie Lee Curtis is a huge one. Wes Craven, if he was still around, would obviously be a hoot of a time, I think. Uh, if we did recently, I think the interesting take of how he got in there would be Jordan Peele, how you go from comedy to horror,
oh
and
yeah,
that would be a fun take. So those would be mine. I do get to give myself a little pat on the back because I did get to interview Robert England
oh yeah,
a few years back. So I pretty much I'm there. It's peaked. It's got to be better than that, you know?
yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. That's like Scream's my favorite horror movie, but they've talked about that so much. It's the same thing, and like of course, like Wes Craven's not alive, so he'd be the first one. But like
Mhm.
Matthew Lillard, but again, he's talked about it in like at exhaustion. So
Yeah.
no, it's almost
Jamie
like
Kennedy's the only one willing to go.
yeah, right. No, which I will say that they're all super nice people when you meet them, but
Mhm.
the only thing that sucks is if they ever come to Tidewater, I won't be able to host their panels because they only host their own panels now, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw something where Matthew Lillard mentioned that uh,
Uh-huh.
on like an interview or something like that. And he said they
Uh-huh.
started doing that. They started only hosting their own panels just so that way they could like control the flow of it and the Q&A and stuff like that. So I think.
Fascinating.
I think it was one of those that it was getting like where they would just take it over anyways, almost. So, um,
Hmm.
but it also might be one of those things only if it's like a group of them. Like if he came by himself, he might not like. If it was just Matthew Lillard and Skeet, they might do it together.
Right.
But
Right. Fascinating.
then my second hypothetical question for you, and in my last of the two, I say back half, but it's always like the back third, maybe even back fourth because they're shorter questions and stuff. But uh,
Yeah.
if you could have, because you guys go to Halloween Horror Nights, and that's a big part of the show as well. Uh,
Hmm.
if you could have any property, and of course, horror property because it's Halloween Horror Nights,
Right.
which property would you have turned into a house that hasn't been turned into a house, or maybe that was turned into a house that you just would like to see done a little better than?
Right. No, I've been thankful because the original Halloween has been a house twice.
Yeah.
And Ghostbusters, my favorite movie of all time, Ghostbusters, was a house a few years back, and Frozen Empire. But there's one house that I have been preaching since I was hosting Haunters podcast all the way to now, that I think the most petrifying house that could exist, especially through the things that I've been through, because last year Insidious was a house and it won House of the Year for the awards that HHN does, Halloween Horror Nights. If there is ever a Hellraiser house,
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna piss my pants. I'm dead serious. I have a trouble watching that film. Like, it's the scariest thing that I watched as a kid. I watched it probably 12 years old, and there's something about it that has haunted me, traumatized me since I won't ever. If I used to work at Best Buy, And during the time I worked at Best Buy, DVDs big thing. So all these pack, there was a shipment of the Hellraiser franchise in the special edition box of the actual puzzle box.
Yeah.
They asked me to unload it. I said no. They said you have to because you're employed here. I said I'm going home sick, and that's a legit thing. I went home because I'm not touching those things. So when if they ever announce this, I'll have to go in, but someone set it up with a GoPro because you're going to see a crying man weep for about 5 minutes of terror.
Hell yeah. No, especially as good as they do with the makeup too. You know that they'll just absolutely crush it. So that'll be
Yeah.
freaking no, that would be awesome for sure.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, it'd be cool that they just did a Clive Barker house in general, so that way they get their Candyman in and some other stuff as well.
Dude. And Halloween Horror Nights has played with it before. Like they've had Candyman roaming around and stuff like that. They've just now, because everything's lawyered up and people pay attention, they can't just grab anymore.
Yeah.
But that Clive Barker in general would be a terrifying existence. And like locally in Virginia, we have this haunt called Frightmare, and they do a night called Icons of Terror. So all the scare actors will dress up as whatever. And one goddamn year, this lady dressed up as a pinhead, and I was in a corner for 3 goddamn minutes not wanting to leave. I'm sorry if you can't cuss on this, but this is very haunting.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, you can cut. Yeah, I pretty much just let it fly from the beginning. I don't even know the YouTube guidelines at this point. So.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that Hellraiser would be chef's kiss beautiful and also terrifying.
Hell yeah. No, that's a really good choice for sure. I wasn't sure if they ever did that one because I've never been to Halloween Horror Nights. I kind of keep up with it year in and year
Mm-hmm.
out, but because I don't go, it's easy to forget, which ones they have done and stuff like that. So,
Oh yeah.
but, no, hell yeah. And then of course, speaking of Horror Nights, and then of course you kind of told a little horror story there with the limit configuration at the Best Buy. But do you have a horror
Mhm.
story of your own? From it could either be something with the podcast gone wrong since you guys do a lot of like live shows and stuff like that, or it could be like an actual like horror story, something paranormal, or if you had like, I've had people talk about being stabbed, held at gunpoint, stuff like that.
Oh
So,
my God. Oh my God. Yeah, no, I mean, let me count the ways how the podcast has been frustrating if I ever do a live event trying to go out there. I've been thankful lately that it hasn't run amok, but on Hunter's podcast, which is basically Death Curse Club is just a sequelized version where I can do more of talk because Hunter's podcast was straight up just haunts and horror events. Well, one of our events that we did, we went to a legitimate haunted house.
oh yeah,
The haunted house invited us out. It's in Virginia Beach. I forget the name of it. But it's in Virginia Beach near the Independence area. And it's like you could take tours, you can go to it, and this is post-COVID. So they're trying to revamp their stuff. So they reached out and said, and one of the managers, actually, the reason why we found out about it is because he was managing Nightmare Mansion all the way at the beach.
oh yeah.
So they're like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing a sleepover because we do ghost like searching, whatever, ghost hunting, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. So Brooke, myself, Nick Wonderful, his lady, and another friend went out there. And let me tell you, I can't exactly express everything that we felt, but we felt it because there was one time in there we go to the top floor of this house, and this is like a colonial house. It's almost like Williamsburg looking of the colonial houses. And one room which housed all the kids, the moment you walked in there, there was a weight that came all over you. And I was covered in goosebumps that I just didn't feel good. And
Yeah.
immediately when I left that room, I was A-okay. That messed with me. Nick and our friend Kate were outside. They're telling us stories about the tree. The tree was a hanging tree for the courthouse. And So they were saying that, yeah. So like if you were found guilty, this is where you hung. And both Kate and Nick touched the tree. Shit you not. Both of them start weeping,
Holy shit.
tears, legitimate tears. They couldn't even explain why, but both of them
Yeah.
just covered. And it's like, what is going on? And throughout the rest of the night, we did little censor things and such. I mean, it was a wild time.
Hell yeah. No, that's crazy.
And
I've definitely always wanted to go do one, but my wife would not do it, even with a group of four. She'd be like, "Fuck you." I'm not doing it.
it was called Fairy Plantation House, by the way. Fairy Plantation House.
Okay, hell yeah. I'll have to look into that for sure. No, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh yeah. Well, I appreciate
And
you
they gave us tools. They gave us tools and everything. Like they had we had a conversation with the ghost. It would do the whenever asking questions, yes and no's. It was
like
wild.
like the little readers and like cat balls and shit.
Yeah.
We watch a lot
Yeah.
of Ghost Hunters. That's the thing is she hates horror movies, but she'll watch the shit out of Ghost Hunters, and I'm like, how can you watch this and not be so scared? She's like, I don't know.
I mean, isn't that the like meme gif, whatever, going around where it's like, oh, I don't like horror movies, but I'm going to watch this true crime 12 episode documentary about how this guy killed someone down the street.
Right. Yeah, my favorite thing is my wife gets on me because I'll watch stuff that has a lot of screaming, but then I'll walk in and she's watching Housewives and it's just they're yelling at each other. I'm like, it's fucking screaming too. Like it's the same
It's
thing.
it's at a tempo that is going to blow your eardrum.
I will say she got me one night because we were like, it was like even before my son was born, and we lay down at night to go to sleep. And I was like, "Can I put on a movie?" And she's like, "Sure." I was like, "Okay." I put on the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and usually like it's one of those things I put a movie on and fall asleep so she can like turn it off or whatever, and just like
Mhm.
put something else on. But I stayed awake and watched the whole thing, and of course I'd seen it before, but I was just like, I want to, I wanted to watch it. It'd been a while, and so I
Mhm.
put it on, and like after like 20 minutes into the finale, she was like, does she ever stop screaming? She's been screaming for like 20 minutes straight. And then by the time the movie was over, she was like, I'm pretty sure that was 45 minutes of just straight screaming. And I was like, I'll do better with my choices next time. I'll go
Yeah,
quieter. But
she had one line, scream.
yeah. Pretty much once Sally gets caught up, it's like that's all she does is scream. Like after Franklin gets it, it's just Sally
Oh yeah.
screaming from like then on. So I didn't blame her. I was like, you are pretty right. I will admit that was quite excessive. I was like, she could have stopped after the cook snagged her, but at that point she was just like an
Love it.
alarm letting them know where she was going. She's just like,
Yeah.
ah.
I'm sure you could download it and use it as your alarm. She'll love that.
Right. Now I'll get a divorce, that's for sure.
Ooh, okay, no more horror
I'm just
stories.
kidding. Yeah, shit, my horror story would be my wife stabbed me in my sleep because I didn't wake up to the screaming alarm.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
No, hell yeah. But I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. It was a blast chatting with you. Do you want to remind, of course, the link will be in the description for the channel, but do you want to remind people where they can find Death Curse Club?
Sure, absolutely. Instagram and Threads, Death Curse Club, YouTube, Death Curse Club, and we're on Facebook if you are a part of that.
Oh, yeah. And of course, wherever you're listening or watching, just leave a like, comment, subscribe, rating, whatever's clever. And thank you all for listening. I appreciate you for joining me, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, man. We're going to have to do some stuff with Halloween season.
Oh, yeah.